Long before the first cell formed, the universe was in constant motion. Raw energy, physical material, and raw data collided in a state of entropy. But over billions of years, these chaotic physical interactions began to organize into a steady, directed current. This is the structure of a DNA double helix. It represents the moment those basic, non-living ingredients, carbon, hydrogen, and nitrogen, successfully organized to manage biological information. The predictable flows of the physical world provided the stable canvas required for life to emerge. Once biological organization took hold, complexity accelerated. Cells formed organs. Organs integrated into organisms. Eventually, self-aware humans emerged, building the intricate social structures that define our world today. Human civilization operates as a highly structured, emergent system. It is a hierarchy built layer upon layer, where the complexity of our modern society rests entirely on the stability of the tiers beneath it. Within this hierarchy, science forms the base, supporting art, religion, economics, politics, and philosophy at the top. Science functions as the load-bearing pillar for everything else. It has one strictly defined job: to study objective truth and produce the data describing our reality. This oscilloscope shows a waveform mapped against a precise grid. For science to serve as a foundation, it relies on the correspondence theory of truth, the requirement that our measurements map exactly to an objective physical state of affairs, independent of our own minds. For the massive, complex architecture of human civilization to stand, we must implicitly trust this foundation. We rely on the assumption that our scientific data perfectly mirrors the external world. We often treat scientific truth as a collection of fixed, eternally proven facts. But the actual practice of science is far more volatile. In the 20th century, philosopher Karl Popper introduced a radical new standard for what counts as knowledge. He argued that a theory is only scientific if it is falsifiable, meaning it must be possible to design an experiment that could prove it false. Science operates through a relentless cycle of conjectures and refutations. It is an engine that constantly tries to break its own best guesses. Even our most successful theories, such as general relativity, are never considered absolutely proven. They have simply survived the most aggressive attempts to break them so far. The stability of our foundation comes from its resilience under fire, not from unchanging certainty. In the world of science, all knowledge is permanently provisional. Scientific progress is often disruptive rather than smooth. Historian Thomas Kuhn observed that over time, researchers encounter anomalies, pieces of data that simply refuse to fit into our current understanding of the world. This heliocentric diagram represents a total restructuring of human knowledge. When the old Earth-centered model could no longer account for the observed movement of the planets, the entire framework had to be discarded and replaced. Kuhn called this incommensurability. The new reality is so different that it no longer speaks the same language as the old one. Words like mass or space take on entirely new meanings, rendering the previous model obsolete. When the scientific bedrock undergoes this kind of total reorganization, it sends shockwaves through every system built on top of it, from our art to our economic policies. The cracks go even deeper than history. David Hume's problem of induction points out that we have no logical way to prove the future will behave like the past. We simply take a leap of faith that the laws of physics will remain consistent tomorrow. Furthermore, raw data is an illusion.
This leaves us with a crisis. If our foundation is provisional, prone to disruption, and logically unproven, and filtered by bias, how does civilization avoid collapsing into chaos? The uncertainties exposed by Popper and Hume serve a structural purpose. They create the very space required for higher levels of human society to form. This is the principle of scoped contribution. Science is strictly limited to providing the best possible raw data. It describes the physical properties of the world, but it lacks the authority to assign meaning or dictate values. Because data alone cannot tell us how to feel or what to prioritize, we rely on art to foster connection and religion to establish the shared hierarchies of value that allow us to cooperate. These systems emerge specifically to navigate the gaps in certainty that science leaves behind. At the absolute apex, philosophy builds the overarching frameworks that allow us to make sense of the entire system. It provides the architecture for thought itself. Because our observations are filtered through our existing theories, the philosophical frameworks at the top of the pyramid actually dictate what scientists look for at the bottom. The river of reality functions as a continuous, self-revising feedback loop. Our search for objective truth informs our search for meaning, which in turn directs the next cycle of scientific inquiry. Science provides a rigorously tested but intentionally limited bedrock. By refusing to give us the final answers to the meaning of life, it empowers us to construct those answers for ourselves.